Welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'm going to break down whether or not you should be investing into regional Queensland or into regional Victoria. I'm going to save you a little bit of time. And if your goal is for quick equity in the next 12 months, and that's your only focus, then you should be really buying into the markets of regional Queensland, including Mackay, Townsville, and Cairns. That's where you should be focusing. However, there is a lot more nuance to this. And if you really want to understand the full breakdown of whether you should be buying in Queensland or Victoria, you need to watch the entirety of this video. So let's get into the first point. It's about property acquisition in these hot versus cold markets. And right now, if you don't know, places like Townsville, Cairns, and Mackay are all extremely hot markets. And this is proven time and time again because when you simply look at the graphs, over the past 3 years, it has grown more than 53% in growth. That's equal to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And just over the past year alone, in Townsville collectively, it has grown over 30% or close to 30%. That is incredible growth and arguably not normal growth, but that is how property cycles work. And all you have to do is actually just zoom out, and for the past 10 years this area has done absolutely nothing, but over the past 3 to 5 years this place has skyrocketed, and that has consequences. Meanwhile, when you look at a place like Greater Bendigo, which is in regional Victoria, you can see that over the past 3 years it has only grown 3%. The market has done absolutely nothing, and over the past year it's actually had negative growth. Now, a thing that must be called out is that in Victoria, a lot of regional areas actually had quite a bit of growth, while as Townsville had no growth or very little growth in the COVID period and then went under a sudden boom. And that simply shows you the difference between the hot and cold markets. And the thing is, when you're buying in a hot market, you as the buyer have very little power. All the power actually lies with the sales agent and the vendor. They are just looking for the highest bid for that property. And this is also reflected on how quickly properties are sold within these areas within 24 to 48 hours, as well as people are paying $10 to $20 to $30,000 over the listing price. It may seem like there are a lot of listings available on the market. However, in reality, there aren't that many, and properties are sold very, very quickly at very high prices. And you'll find a lot of properties under offer already within 24 to 48 hours. And this means that if you are stuck on a smaller or lower budget under the 550 mark, it can be very hard for you to get a property in Townsville or in Cairns that is of very good quality. You might have to purchase a subpar quality property. Meanwhile, if you were to buy in a place like regional Bendigo or regional Ballarat or a cooler market throughout Australia, you have the benefit of time. You have the option of time, which you don't have in those hot markets like Townsville and Cairns. Now, again, I want to stress, if you're after quick equity, you need to be buying in those areas because that is where the market is hot. That is where you are getting quick profit month on month. There is no question about. And there are more factors I want to break down about buying in regional Queensland versus regional Victoria. But before I do get into that, if you have not already, make sure you are subscribed to my private community. We have over 100 members within the community. It's an absolute no-brainer if you are investing in property in 2025. There's so much resources there. There's questions being asked every single day about sharing locations, ideas, what you should do here, and many more. And if you don't like it, you can have your money back in 30 days as well with a money back guarantee. Let's get back into the video. So, what is the next point I want to make? And it's actually about holding costs and property acquisition. When you really break down the numbers between regional Queensland and regional Victoria, the numbers actually come out to be very, very similar. Now, take this house, for example, that's being sold in 11th of December for $492,000 in Vincent, which is in Townsville, a very hot market at this point in time. When we look at the numbers and you assume a 12% deposit, the first thing you'll notice about in regional Queensland is that you'll pay much lower stamp duty at $17,000. And all the other fees will be very similar in terms of property acquisition. Whereas when you take a very similar property in California Gully for $470,000 sold at 10th of December, the property acquisition costs are actually a little bit higher, sitting around $6,000 higher, mainly because your stamp duty is $24,000, and that is for a cheaper property, by the way, as well. So that's an important factor you need to consider. Stamp duty in Victoria is ridiculously high. There's just no way around that. It's an unfortunate expense we have to pay as an investor. However, one point that I believe that is not stressed enough is the risk of investing into a town like Townsville, where there is a very high chance of flooding and cyclones, that you will have much higher insurance premiums as well as council rates compared to regional Victoria. For example, and you can run these quotes yourself as well, a lot of towns in regional Cairns or regional Townsville, you'll find insurance premiums sitting around the 3 to 4,000 mark per year, as well as council rates sitting anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 per year, including the water rates as well. And you'll generally find the property management fees are a little bit higher, around the 8 to 10% mark. While as in regional Victoria, you will have much cheaper insurance premium provided you don't buy in a flood zone, and you'll have usually cheaper council rates as well, and cheaper water rates. And in most cases, what I found is that property management is pretty reasonable, sitting between 6 to 7.5% across regional Victoria. So you also save a little bit there. The counter argument with holding costs in regional Victoria compared to regional Queensland is that in Victoria you have the dreaded land tax, which is an absolute factor you must consider. For a $500,000 property, it's going to cost you around $1,500 in land tax every single year, which you must factor in as well. When you really break down the numbers, you get a very similar holding cost, and you can definitely go either way. You can definitely get better properties in Townsville or Cairns, which yield a lot better and you have better cash flow, and you can do worse properties in Victoria where it doesn't yield as well. And if you get anything around the 5% mark in Victoria, by the way, for a yield, you're doing very, very well. Let me just tell you that, because most properties are sitting around 4 to 4.5% yield, and that's going to make your cash flow worse. You can see it's a little bit harder to hold a property at 4.5%. And of course, these calculations are before any tax considerations, so that's to note as well. But the people who did it really intelligently are the people who bought around that 2023 period, the late 2023 to the early 2024 period. Those are the people who have really reaped the benefits of buying to Townsville, because all you have to do is look at the indicative yield or the gross yield, and you can see ever since house prices started rising, it has been absolutely plummeting. And that's just because house prices have naturally gone up and rents haven't kept up with that pace. That just makes sense. Meanwhile, in regional Bendigo, you can see the yields have actually been rising since 2022, and the conditions have been improving with steady rent rises every single year, which makes holding the property in regional Victoria just that little bit easier, despite all the landlord taxes and the new minimum regulations as well. So there's that consideration. So who should be investing where? If your goal is for quick equity in the next 12 to 24 months, you need to be investing into areas like Cairns, like Townsville, like Mackay. What's the risk? You have high competition. You could be easily overpaying for the property and eating into your capital growth. You could be buying subpar quality properties and that are being sold way overpriced. You could, in the effort to secure a property, miss crucial steps like paying for a building and pest inspection just because you want to get across the line, and you'll be competing with every other retail investor plus buyer's agent plus other property gurus out there as well. And sellers have all the power here. But if you want quick equity, this is the sacrifice you have to make. However, on the flip side, if you're to buy in regional Victoria, what are the risks? Well, there isn't massive growth happening in the next 12 months that is forecasted based on the data. Now, something can change in the next 6 months, but at this very point in time, at the recording of this video, I can't sit here and guarantee you're going to get massive results. But what is the strategy if you buy in regional Victoria? It's you buy something under market value, you go against the grain, you aim for counter-cyclical investing, you have the time to be able to invest and buy the right property and buy a very high quality property that suits you for a long-term hold. You don't have to compete with as many people, many agents, investors, or buyer's agents. And it should really be for the people who are looking to diversify, who are going against the grain, who may be at the end of the borrowing capacity and who do not need that immediate equity but can wait for growth, whether it's 12, 24, or 36 months. Now, obviously, what are the risks with Victoria? And I'm not going to shy away from the risks, right? One, you've got huge acquisition cost. For a $500,000 property, you're paying 26 grand in stamp duty. You also have the dreaded land tax. And on top of that, you have Victoria who puts really strict rental minimum standards. Now, are there ways to approach this strategically to buy in Victoria? Yes. However, you need to be aware of buying into regional Queensland and the risk associated with it. And so I really hope by the end of this video, you have understood whether or not you should be buying in regional Queensland or regional Victoria and the risks associated with either or. And if you have any questions at all, make sure you leave it in the comments down below and join the private community as well. And if you're wondering exactly where to invest in 2025, then you need to check this video out here.